starting with Emperor Domitian, my favorite Roman emperor, and
Sure.
also in relation to his magnum opus, Revelation. So, since we know, according to Church Father Irenaeus, that the book of Revelation appeared at the end of Domitian's reign, we can assume that this was composed by Emperor Domitian himself right before he was assassinated. And we can also assume that he was keenly aware that he would not be deified by the Roman Senate. So, do you think that Revelation was written not only to reveal the truth about the Christian religion, but also as a way for Emperor Domitian to deify himself vicariously through the nascent faith, since he would have been aware of the fact he would not be deified by the Roman Senate?
This is an incredibly astute question. And my answer is yes. I think that this was probably the real motivation for Revelation is Domitian seemed to have become obsessed with his adoption of being divine. He insisted people call him Lord God, which gives you a clue in terms of his personality. He created enormous statues of himself in the temples that he created to worship himself. And so Revelation is a vanity piece. And it has two components. I mean, one is the depiction of Domitian as a god. And I show this in Shakespeare's Secret Messiah. I show the beginning parts of Revelation are typologically linked into description that Suetonius has of Domitian. Um, Now, bear in mind that this is very tongue-in-cheek, that the revelation of Domitian as the Lord God of Revelation is not some kind of sincere belief that Domitian had in his divinity. It's actually a mockery of the kind of the imperial cult in general. It's mocking it. I think Domitian and the Caesars were far more rational than the literature that they used to present their divinity. And there's actually like quote by Vespasian, which I think shows quite a bit of cynicism toward um, the human gods. Um, so Revelation is created, and it clearly indicates that Domitian would be the sixth deified Caesar. The first five deified Caesars are actually presented in Revelation um, in the angels, the five angels who announce sort of the the next level of divinity with the god who follows it in this sequence. And I show that the attributes of the five angels, particularly when you look at it in an overall sequence, are obviously indicating the five deified Caesars of the imperial cult. There were five at the time that
Exactly.
Domitian had was a Caesar. And so you have Julius, Augustus, Claudius, Vespasian, and Titus, and their kind of famous military achievements are represented symbolically. Now, Domitian is therefore declaring himself as the sixth. So the answer to your question is actually given right in
Yeah.
Revelation, if you sort of decode it, that he's claiming, I am the sixth God man Caesar. And it doesn't matter what the Roman Senate says. Here I am in my book of Revelation is declaring it. And I have said that if the book of Revelation was actually simply read, the first half of it particularly, was read at Domitian's his temple in Ephesus, where his imperial cult was headquartered, it would be pretty coherent. People would actually, I think, who were there, would kind of make sense of the verbiage as a way of indicating that Domitian was a god. So the Caesars were very kind of they wanted to acquire what they saw as a mortal legacy. And by that, they simply meant that in the future, their creation of Christianity and their representation within it of their own deification would become known to the public. They knew that eventually some, neurotic compulsive would work through the details and write Caesar's Messiah, and then the information would start to get out to the public,
Mhm.
and thereby create the legacy they wanted. So in other words, they created the typology both in the Gospels and in the book of Revelation and in Paul's letters. They created it for the very purpose of it being eventually understood so that they could have this pie in the face to mankind,
Mhm.
revealing the truth of this religion, and thereby have people aware of them. In other words, the more that the humiliation of having believed in Christianity, and that now was being exposed as being false and a creation of the Caesar, the more it hurt, the more they felt that they would have this legacy.
Mhm.
So this is a very, psychopathic kind of approach to legacy, that they're trying actually to mock the people who would eventually think of them as the creators of Christianity. But unfortunately, this just is completely logical to the way that I understand the Caesar's personalities in a general sense. This is just how they were. They saw themselves as special and very intelligent, and they saw most of their subjects as being idiots and therefore deserving this kind of mockery.